Rob Skiba famously did an experiment with a Fresnel lens and a little image of the sun that he tried to illustrate how he thinks the sun appears to set each day. A while back I used a Fresnel lens to do a little critique to show what Rob was doing wrong. We recently received here, however, at the Creation Museum some optical benches that I think illustrates this very nicely. What we have here is a little light source in the back. I'll turn that on, and that light source will illuminate a little image object right there. It looks like the number 1, and we'll view it through this lens over here. Now I'm going to set it up back here so that we're viewing the image of the object through the lens there. Notice what happens as I move the lens backwards towards us, moving it away from the object. Notice that indeed it starts to magnify and then starts to move downward. It's exactly the sort of result that Rob Skiba got. I'll go back again. As I move away, the lens away from the object, it will go downward. Now what Rob did was he moved the object away from the lens, but it's equivalent either way. Whether you move the object or the lens, as long as the distance is increasing, it's the same thing. Now, I want you to notice something, however. If I put the lens up here by the object, notice that it's actually below the object. If I go from the side, you can see that very nicely. There is the object sitting there, and the lens is quite a bit below the object. What this is doing is it's causing the view to be below the optical axis. The optical axis should pass like this. Let me move this lens up. It'll take me a moment here to do it. But this is what it should look like. There, the lens, you can see, is the same height that the object is. Now, if I repeat the experiment over here, you'll notice that as I move the lens out, it only moves down very slightly now. That's because I'm still a little bit below the optical axis as I was before. Not quite as much, however. What happens if I move the lens a little higher? Now you can clearly see that the lens is above, it's higher than the object is. And when I repeat this experiment now, you'll notice that as I move the lens toward the observer and away from the object, it magnifies and rises. And I'll show that. It rises rather than falling. The mistake Rob Skiba was doing is he was working below the optical axis. If you're exactly on the optical axis, the object, the image of the object will stay motionless, but it will increase in size. You see, the image increases outward away from the optical axis. So if you're below the optical axis, it magnifies and appears to move downward. If you're above the optical axis, it increases in size and appears to move upward.